All right, for a 24th time, welcome into college football coast to coast here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football, featuring, of course, we couldn't do this, although we've attempted, we've had to do it once or twice without him, but Pigskin Pete, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing great, Mark. Amazing and fantastic, as it were. And I really look forward to doing these shows and chopping it up with you every Monday at 12 o'clock here.
It has been a good time for 24 weeks. So
Yes.
Everybody play along, follow along. I'm going to say this right off the top, especially because even though there are going to be a lot of people join us for the next hour live, most of the people that are going to watch this will be on replay and will catch this right off the top. Next week, mark it down. We will be over on Pigskin Pete's channel starting next week. So we're just trying to share the wealth. We're not trying to confuse you. But we're going every 12 weeks, roughly 3 months, 12 weeks on each channel. So next week at noon, Monday, boom, mark it down. Pigskin Pete's hosting college football coast to coast.
That is
all
right.
Leave your comments, your suggestions, anything that you've got there in the live chat that you'd like to hear us mix it up on, debate topics, anything on your mind, comments, and we will get to those. Man, it was a busy day on Sunday, Pete. Not any like huge national stories, but for some big football programs, Michigan was looking like they were going to have to play a possible, and they still may win the quarterback job. Their 5-star signee from the 21 class, JJ McCarthy, but they got at least some experience from Texas Tech and Alan Bowman, who was a part-time starter there for 3 years. So that was big news for Michigan, but it was actually trumped by the 5-star commit, Will Johnson. And there's not a whole lot of 5 stars that come out of the state of Michigan, but Will Johnson, a cornerback, is one. And he had considered USC and Ohio State, but at least for now, not that these guys don't flip, because he's got to hold this commitment all the way to December. But Michigan gets a big commit and a 5-star cornerback, Will Johnson.
Tell me a little bit about this kid from Texas Tech. Is he eligible to play next season?
He is. He's a graduate transfer.
Okay.
And his numbers aren't going to amaze you. It's not like all the other fill in the blank of quarterbacks in Texas Tech history under Mike Leach, and even before that with Cliff Kingsbury, when Cliff Kingsbury was actually a quarterback, and putting up just those amazing numbers. 33 touchdowns, 17 picks. That's a career stat for him. He kind of bounced back and forth in regards to not ever being the starter at Texas Tech, taking over when somebody else got injured, winning the job, losing the job. So he's got 3 years of experience, but never really locked it down for one season. So 33 touchdowns, 17 picks for him in 3 years, 67% completion percentage for Alan Bowman. So I would think that most Michigan fans would like a situation in which maybe he starts the season and you get kind of that NFL first-round quarterback look of, we're going to give you 4 weeks to sit, something in that range, and then ease you into it. But I don't think most Michigan fans want Alan Bowman to be the starting quarterback for the entire season, but at least they've got some capable backup experience and a possible starter, and he wouldn't be the worst starter in the Big Ten. He'd be pretty much a mid-range guy if they had to go that route.
I'm completely jaded by every year coming into the season. I hear from Michigan fans that tell me this is the year we finally have this guy. It's every year somebody new, right? Well, this guy, you don't know about this guy, Pete. I know the guy last year didn't, work out the way as planned. So I'm jaded, Mark, until I see some decent, above average quarterback play from a Michigan Wolverine under Jim Harbaugh. I'm just not buying into it until I see it. And I'll admit, I thought that what's the young man from last year?
Shea Patterson. Oh, last year, Joe Milton.
Yeah, Milton.
Joe Milton.
I bought into the Milton. And was it the first game of the year he went out there and looked great? Was that and then after that, it was just, a steady decline. And then all of a sudden, he's not even on the team anymore, is he?
No, he left about a week ago, and he had lost the job. And they only played 6 games. It only took him 4 games to go from opening night, ABC, Saturday night, Minnesota game. They put up 49 points. He looks good. And then, like you said, that was pretty much it. the gradual decline. Like every week he looked worse. Suddenly they're losing to a Michigan State team that they're a 3-touchdown favorite against. And then by week 4 or 5, they're losing to Rutgers 21-0. He's getting benched. That's the end of him. They come back and beat Rutgers, but that's the end of his career right there at Michigan. And yeah, this is the latest. Actually, Shea Patterson was the guy that I just figured, hey, based on the scouting reports, and he played well at Ole Miss. He put up numbers at Ole Miss. And he didn't have a bad career, a bad 2 years at Michigan. He just wasn't the guy. He wasn't an elite quarterback, but he was a 5-star. So I figured, okay, Harbaugh is supposed to know what he's doing with quarterback development. And here's a 5-star that's played well in the SEC.
Well, that's been the biggest knock on Jim Harbaugh, especially coming from me, is his inability to develop. It's not, he doesn't have a hard time getting talent to come there. I mean, it's Michigan. He's Jim Harbaugh. That's attractive to the vast majority of high recruited quarterbacks in the country. But his development of these quarterbacks has been less than stellar, to say the least.
This is the one thing I'm not going to be critical about Jim Harbaugh for. This is the one thing that impresses me. All we heard all season was, well, first of all, they were playing like garbage. So they went 2-4, lost to some teams that they should never lose to, had that look of ducking some teams late, and most significantly Ohio State. And then on top of that, there's all the speculation that he's got a contract on the table in front of him and he's not signing it for weeks and months. That his coaching status was in limbo. He finally, he brings in a recruiting class during the midst of that. He didn't even sign the contract, and the contract wasn't even announced until after the entire season, and he still pulls in a top 10 recruiting class.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That his ability to recruit based off of his name and the university is not his problem. And I think that from what I can tell from the Michigan fans, that this is what they're starting to get impatient with Jim Harbaugh because, he took a big pay cut. Well, because the knock is before that. Well, here's a guy who is not living up to expectation. Is he a better coach at Michigan than what the previous two coaches? Are they heading in the right direction? The answer to that is of course they are. But he wasn't living up to his salary and the expectations that were set by his salary. So anyway, getting players to come there has never been his problem. It's something else, and it's clear that he's on borrowed time at this point.
I'm going to split your comment into two sections. The comment when you said, is he an upgrade over the two previous coaches, and is the program headed in the right direction? So for me, he's an upgrade over the two previous coaches, Rich Rod and Brady Hoke, but they were nowhere close to Michigan expectations on the field. But no to number two. They're not headed in the right direction. This was a nice recruiting class, but they've steadily declined since 2016 when they came that close to going to the Big Ten championship and most likely a college football playoff appearance. And Michigan fans know what I'm talking about there. It was a measurement against Ohio State on a 4th down that would have won the game. That since then they've been okay, but they looked like they were ready to join the elite there. And since then it's been 8-5, 10-3, 9-4, 2-4. And the 9-4 and the 10-3 there at the end, they started to really get blasted by Ohio State and other decent teams.
I still contend that he will eventually leave Michigan on his own accord. I don't think he'll get fired, even with the pressure from a large majority of the fan base to put the pressure on him and say maybe one more season or whatever their limit is time wise. But I believe that he will leave on his own accord and most likely head back to the National Football League at some point, whether that's next year or the year after that at some point.
I have intentionally left up the first comment of the live chat from Let's Toast Media because he's a Michigan fan. So Go Blue, he's fired up. I know a lot of you have commented that this has become your lunch break on every Monday. So that's good to hear. Join us for some college football talk and blame me, not Pete. Blame me. Look at me. Blame me for us being 5 or 6 minutes late. That was on me. That was the audio setup. First of all, I was just on the phone with somebody about a half hour telling them that should have been my New Year's resolution for just pretty much everything in my life, not being late. But that continues to be one of my, not the only one, just in the long list of faults from me, being late. So my viewers have come to recognize and know that, unfortunately, but I need to clean that up. But today we would have been on time, but I was having audio issues. So that's what it was there.
You technically were on time today. We just had a little bit of a problem with him hearing me. But yeah, that's one of my attributes. You know, I have a lot of things that are wrong with me too, Mark, in this world. But punctuality is not one of them. I am always on time. Now, how I perform after I get there on time is a different story. But at least I'm there on time.
I was always classically late at work. So that would depend, though, because when I had a job where you punch the clock, well, I was on time. Then over the last 20 plus years, I've had jobs where you didn't punch the clock. I was always late, 15 minutes late, 45 minutes late, whatever. I was late, but I got the job done. Nobody seemed to care. Nobody brought it up. I would even be late to meetings, the whole deal. But the difference was if I knew somebody was counting on me, like somebody couldn't go home until I got there, or I had to lead a meeting or had to talk, well, then I showed that I could be on time. It really wasn't something where I couldn't be on time. I could be on time because I wouldn't want to let people down.
Right.
So then I could be on time.
I get it. That makes sense.
But yeah, me walking into work 45 minutes late was pretty much standard stuff. All right. Good to see everyone in the chat, including Bleach Orange. Thank you so much for the super chat contribution. I can't always watch live, but keep it up, guys.
Yes, we appreciate all the people that watch live. Dave Rowland here says, I can only listen to this one. If I watch it, I will lose my lunch with those two helmets in the background. I don't know if he's talking about the two helmets behind you, Mark, the Michigan and the Wisconsin one, maybe.
Yeah. So this is coming from Ronan.
No, Dave Rowland.
Let me catch up with this one. Oh, Dave Rowland.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think who he would be a fan of, because if he's saying two helmets, I would think that he's talking to me. Michigan, Wisconsin. I see the Big Ten. Obviously, that's the connection. Ohio State fan, I guess.
Maybe.
I wouldn't think that Wisconsin would be that much of an issue, but
maybe he's talking about this one too. One behind me.
Well, there you go. That could be. You put those two together for an Ohio State fan. They're still, yeah.
Michigan and Clemson.
It's still 4-1. So I know they're feeling good about what just happened, and they should. Ohio State fans should feel good. I feel good about the performance because I didn't expect it, but it's still 4-1. So the Clemson fans can still say 4-1. You know, who beats Ohio State 5 straight times? Well, almost nobody, or maybe nobody. So you can't expect us to win everyone. We're still up 4-1. So that's going to take a long time to erase, if it ever gets erased.
So Austin in the chat here has a great question, and it's something that we were going to talk about anyway, Mark. So this would be a good segue into that. He says, thoughts on Clemson losing 2 starters / co-starters on defense recently. As a Clemson fan, it seems a little bit worrisome. Well, what he's referring to is, at least I think the 2 guys he's referring to is number one, the guy that got kicked off the team yesterday, Darian Kendrick, who was a defensive back for Clemson. And last week, we had a player that actually retired, a defensive end, Foster. And that was unexpected. So basically what happened with him is he was one of the ones that was severely affected by COVID when he tested positive for it last year. He never really fully recovered from it. According to Dabo, anyway, and in the article I read, he's had a history of asthma problems throughout his entire life. So when he got sick with COVID, it really did a number on him, and he never really fully recovered from it. He is a graduate, and according to him, he had to choose between coming and playing his final season at Clemson or taking a job opportunity that he wanted to take. So he chose the job opportunity over coming back. It sounds to me as if he never really had any aspirations of being a National Football League player because of his health issues, maybe. So losing him, he's a veteran guy. So yes, that definitely is not good. He's depth. He's part of the depth on the defensive line. Darien Kendrick, was I surprised when I read the headline yesterday that Kendrick got kicked off the team? No, because this has been an ongoing issue with him. He was he's got a pretty interesting story. In high school, he was a quarterback. He's obviously the most athletic guy on the team. Wasn't recruited by anybody in college football as a quarterback. Goes to Clemson as a wide receiver. Plays one season at wide receiver. Then they transition him to defensive back, which is where he's played the past 2 seasons. And he's had his flashes of great play. And I really think that coming into this season, we were really looking forward to him finally settling in and becoming a veteran defensive back on the team, which is one of the key positions of need on Clemson's team right now. But last year he missed, I think, 3 games for discipline issues. I think he's failed a couple drug tests for marijuana, which is not a big deal in college, but it is what it is. There's rules there for a reason. I think maybe he had some issues academically, not living up to the standard that's set there by Dabo and the rest of the coaching staff as far as academics go. So, in Darian Kendrick's words himself, he said, I exhausted my 9th life with Coach Sweeney. In other words, he gave me a lot of chances, and I continued to screw up, and I screwed up one too many times. And as a result, he got kicked off the team. So, from a football standpoint, is it good that Darian Kendrick got kicked off the team? Absolutely not. But I think maybe getting a guy like that out of the locker room is actually more beneficial to the team than the alternative.
I saw his draft projection, both looking at the stories yesterday and then also at the time that he made the decision that he was going to stay at Clemson for his senior season as a potential late first rounder. I would love to gather up all the information on all the various players that are either entering the NFL draft or considering it to add up all the projections for a late first round pick, because I think, Pete, it's typically like 150 guys, because I understand, I'm not saying that he would not have been selected in the first round of the NFL draft. I'm just saying that the potential of all the people that I see that there's some kind of projection of being a possible first round pick, it would add up to a ton of dudes, and there's not enough spots in the first round. But I was a bit surprised to see that high of a projection on him.
I don't know. Where'd you read that? See, I would have had him maybe in the 2nd or even 3rd round.
That was on one of the major sites, either ESPN, the article I read on there, that was his, again, a projection or a possible projection, a possibility.
I mean, look, he's a solid player. I wouldn't put him in the elite category. And I think to go in the first round as a defensive back, you have to be elite. So
you should be potentially elite, period,
anywhere.
But especially a defensive back as a first round pick. And that they're basically the only reason that he came back was to get his degree. Well, I can't imagine that. That's what I think his mom said at the time as well.
Yeah.
But I talked to a Clemson buddy who didn't think it was a big deal, didn't think that he was an exceptional player, said, sure, we're going to miss him, but wasn't too interested in tackling, never lived up to his potential. We're good without him.
So this is what happens, Mark. This is the same thing that happens when you really want to get a recruit and you think he's going to sign with your school, and then he signs with another school, and you go, "Oh, we didn't really need him anyway. We didn't really want him anyway." So I heard a lot of this yesterday, or I read a lot of this on Twitter after the news broke. A lot of Clemson people saying, "Oh, he was no good anyway. Oh, we need to get rid of Landon Zanders too. I hope he gets kicked off the team too." No, look, depth is an issue at defensive back for Clemson. Period. Would you take a starter and a guy who's a veteran, and he gets kicked off? One day he's on the team, and the next day he isn't. That's not good. I don't care. I don't care if he lived up to your expectation personally or not, because he was a 5-star recruit. And I guess the expectations are always high for a 5-star recruit. But he's a solid player. You don't want to lose a guy like that.
Sure. If there's a guy that's projected to go in the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft, then he can play for anyone and be on the field and be productive.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose those guys.
No.
Darien Kendrick, moves on from Clemson. I read some of the quotes that Dabo made at the time of the disciplinary action last year when he missed the Wake Forest game, sat out at the beginning of the Citadel game. I think it was something about, Dabo was presented with, is he in the doghouse? And he said, well, we like to call it the love shack.
Yeah. He said he's not in the doghouse. It's more like the love shack. Yeah. In other words, I'm disciplining him, but it's nothing too serious, is what he was trying to say.
Yeah.
But look, Dabo Swinney has a history of this. This isn't the first or last player that's been kicked off of the team for either disciplinary problems or just not living up to the academic standard that he sets there. So, again, when I read the news, now if I would have read the news yesterday that said DJ Uiagalelei gets kicked off the team, and now I would have been shocked at that. When I read Darian Kendrick gets released from the team, I'm like, oh, well, okay. I'm actually not, surprised. I'm surprised it didn't happen earlier, kind of thing.
Definitely. So big news out of Clemson. Darian Kendrick, talented player, a starter for the past 2 years after moving over from wide receiver. And we'll see what his NFL draft prospects are. So is he going into the transfer portal? Do you know, or is he opting for the NFL draft transfer portal?
I know he's transferring, and this would be interesting to see where he goes. I have a feeling, I don't know why, but I have a feeling that Georgia is going to be at the top of the list. I don't know what they need, or if they even have room for another scholarship or whatever. But he grew up in Rock Hill, South Carolina. For those of you who don't know where Rock Hill is, it's sort of right in the middle of the state. It's right between Columbia and Clemson, basically. And I think one of the reasons he came to Clemson was to stay semi-close to where, to home. And Athens is not that far from Clemson. It's only about an hour and a half. So, or maybe not even that far. So I would not be surprised to see if he ended up to be a Georgia Bulldog.
So we've got the big news out of Michigan with a quarterback coming in from Texas Tech, a 5-star commit at cornerback. Darian Kendrick moves on from Clemson, and we'll see where he lands. Also, Eric Gilbert. So you got a 5-star tight end who, despite the quarterback issues at LSU in his freshman season, caught 35 passes, goes to Florida, which seems to be a great fit in the absence of Kyle Pitts. That Eric Gilbert isn't necessarily Kyle Pitts yet, but he's got that kind of talent. He transferred to Florida. That was announced on January 31st. We're here about 4 weeks later. He hasn't played a down, hasn't gone to a practice. What he's done, I don't know. And all of a sudden, he's back in the transfer portal.
So how does this work? He's lost his eligibility now, right?
I don't know. I didn't see that anywhere.
2021, I mean. It's hard. It's just so hard to keep up with who's eligible and who's not, and because they'll make exceptions for certain people, but not others.
Yes.
And I don't know what the rule is as far as, like, this is a unique situation. Normally we see a guy transfer and he either has to sit out a year or he doesn't. But to transfer twice in one calendar year, like, is there a rule against that? Is there a rule against eligibility as far as transferring more than once in one season? I mean,
you bring up great points across the board, because first and foremost, we used to have just graduate transfers.
Yeah.
Man, how many times could you remember 10 years ago and before anybody? And this is what I loved about college football, besides just watching the games, and the games are awesome, and the pageantry and the tradition and all that, is that you're an NFL guy. Your Clemson guys are in the NFL. You're rooting for them to do well. You're keeping an eye on them. They were always Clemson guys. That's something that you would always know. Hey, Deshaun Watson's a Clemson guy. Never played for anybody else. Always a Clemson guy. Will forever be a Clemson guy. 10 years from now, we're going to have guys all over the NFL. And we're going to be like, hey, he played for my team for a year, but he also played for my rival, or he went to some other conference, and maybe he played for 3 teams. That was just the pure aspect of college football being this guy's always going to be a Clemson Tiger. He's always a Buckeye. He's always a Wolverine. But that's going to be lost for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah, and you already see some of that now. I mean, in other words, the LSU fans and the Ohio State fans both claim Joe Burrow, right?
He's LSU's.
Right, but believe me, the Ohio State fans claim him.
Why? I don't get it. He's from Ohio, okay? You can claim him as a high school, as a native Ohioan, but not as an Ohio State fan. He never threw a meaningful pass at Ohio State.
From a football standpoint, I understand that. But I mean, he did go to school there for 3 years or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
So I get that part of it. Like, here's another example of this. I always brag about how great ACC quarterbacks over time translate to the NFL. I think literally a third of the NFL has starting quarterbacks that played in the ACC. So I don't get much to brag about the ACC, so I take everything I can get. But so the argument is with Russell Wilson.
I knew that was coming up.
Russell Wilson claims to be he doesn't claim NC State, right? He started at NC State for 3 years. He transferred as a graduate to Wisconsin, played, I think, 1 season, right?
Yes.
Wisconsin. But he calls himself a Wisconsin quarterback. I'm claiming him for the ACC because to me, 3 years is more than 1 year. Is it not, Mark? So
I don't have an NC State helmet, so I'm claiming Russell Wilson for Wisconsin.
Right.
So, yeah, 3 is better than 1. 3 is more than 1. Yeah. I will also, though, say on the Russell Wilson, Wisconsin side, Wisconsin sounds more impressive than NC State. It's a bigger, better football program and more successful. Number 2, he accomplished more, even though I think he was first year player of the year, whatever they call it, rookie of the year in the ACC. And he had some other decent accolade, like offensive player of the year in the ACC. But people really didn't watch North Carolina State or really understand that he was there. I didn't even know, who knows? That was 10 or 15 years ago. I don't remember my recollection, but he went to a Rose Bowl with Wisconsin,
right?
And it's just considered a better football school.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Hey, look, Russell Wilson, when he played at NC State, he was the best player on the team by a long shot. He was a really good player on a pretty marginal or even bad team. So I guess I understand why he claims Wisconsin over NC State, but to me, he's an ACC guy.
I'm going to have to think about that a little bit more concerning ACC quarterbacks. I will sometimes during the NFL season think, okay, I'm going to count up conferences in terms of starting quarterbacks. And yes, the ACC's typically up there with quarterbacks, but I never really took notice of how good are they.
Well, just the fact that they're starting for an NFL team is all, is
Sure.
what I'm saying. I think last season they had 9 starters that were former ACC quarterbacks, which, out of 32 teams is basically a third.
Yeah.
So
I am curious to see Russell Wilson's NC State stats. I may be looking those up soon or after the show.
And by the way, I don't know what's going to happen with Mitch Trubisky. He's an ACC quarterback technically, right? But he's not very good.
But he's a starter in the NFL, or
he's a starter in the NFL.
He's hanging on to his job.
Yeah. And there's some really good ones too. I mean, obviously Watson, Lamar Jackson, Matt Ryan's an ACC guy. There's a bunch of them. Sure. But Phillip Rivers was an ACC guy, but he just retired. Now we're adding 2 more ACC guys this year alone. Or we're definitely adding 1 with Trevor Lawrence, and then next season, Sam Howell will most likely be a high round draft pick and start somewhere.
Yeah, and not just currently, but over the recent past, the ACC has been really prominent in quarterback play. And of course, Phillip Rivers, he's got his detractors, but he's got his supporters. He is compiling a huge resume for the NFL Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, if you believe he's won or not. But the numbers are massive, and he is probably coming back next year. Do we know?
Yeah, as far as no, he's retired.
Okay, he did retire.
He retired, and that's why the Colts went out and got Carson Wentz.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, he's done, and he will get into the Hall of Fame, no doubt about it. He's had a Hall of Fame career. I know he never won a Super Bowl, but I mean, his numbers are Hall of Fame worthy, I'd say.
Miami Flo, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Appreciate that. Miami Flow, love the show. Keep grinding. Go Canes.
Thank you, Miami Flow.
Also, no big surprises here in regards to just talent acquisition. Ohio State picks up a 4-star wide receiver yesterday. Texas picks up a 4-star safety, one of the top 5 safeties in the country. And I think there was one other commitment of note somewhere, but we pretty much Missouri picked up a 4-star quarterback, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the 2022 class, Sam Horn.
That's interesting.
Out of Georgia.
Wow. John Serrain says, so is De'Aaron King a Cougar or a Cane? See, that's a good question.
So as of right now, I think it's fairly split, although he was a little bit more productive with Houston, but he's going to be playing. Hopefully he can come back, and he should be able to, his last season with Miami. And I think that would, for me, take him over the top.
That's a special situation because one of them is a Power 5 team and the other one isn't. So I think you're always going to go with the Power 5 team over the lower level conference.
The Rod Farva is catching us up to date on Russell Wilson's NC State career. 17 career rushing TDs, 1,000 yards rushing.
Yeah. Yeah, he had a couple of really good seasons there. Just wasn't a very good team.
Passing stats were nice.
Yeah.
76 TDs, 26 picks. And Russell Wilson on the move in the NFL.
That's the rumor, Mark. The rumor is that he's unhappy. But then he says, I don't want to be traded, but if you're going to trade me, this is where I want to go. I'm not going to make the analogy I made on the air the other day for this show, but it's silly to say.
Oh, come on, Pete. You can hit us with it. We're not as squeaky clean as you think. I can take it.
The analogy that I made was that's like if you're married and you say, I really don't want to cheat on my wife, but if I was going to cheat on her, these would be the 3 women I did it with.
Yeah.
So the fact that you even bring it up at all, it means there's some truth to it. I don't see him getting traded though. I don't know why they would trade him.
Yeah, he's just a miracle worker outside the pocket. I think he's amazing. I love watching him play. I think he's one of the most fun players to watch play in the NFL. G Bama Boy has elevated this to like a percentage. Jalen Hurts is 70% Bama, 30% Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And now we're splitting guys.
See, I think of Jalen as a Bama guy, but that's just me. I always tend to go to first school. David Greenshield asks a good question here. He says, what does Pete think of Trevor being coached by Urban Meyer? I haven't heard his opinion yet. I think it's an interesting fit. First of all, I might be in the minority here. I think Urban Meyer is going to be a good NFL coach. I know that the group think out there is that the college coaches can't translate to the NFL. We've heard that a million times because you can point out Steve Spurrier and you can point out a couple of these other guys, Nick Saban, that were great in college and failed in the NFL. There's also been plenty of them that have succeeded. Pete Carroll comes to mind. Might be the most right now the coach that's translated the best. Obviously, Jimmy Johnson was with Miami and then won a couple of Super Bowls with the Cowboys. So there is a precedent set for elite college coaches that can go and win big in the NFL. Yeah, I was even scratching my head a couple of years ago when the Arizona Cardinals hired Cliff Kingsbury. I'm like, this doesn't make much sense. But this is a different game today than it was even 20 years ago. The NFL has adopted a lot of college style of play, especially offensively, especially with quarterback play. I have no doubt in my mind that Urban Meyer has the cachet to surround himself with an NFL coaching staff that can get the best out of Trevor Lawrence. Now, what it comes down to is how do they, just like every other NFL team, how do they draft? How do they manage free agency to stay with the cap? All of those things. From a coaching standpoint, I have no doubt. I mean, Urban Meyer's a winner. He's won everywhere he's went, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be a winner at Jacksonville. And to answer your question, I'm not the biggest fan of Urban Meyer, the person. Of course, I don't know Urban Meyer personally, so it's just from what I see and read. But I pull it for Trevor Lawrence. So if for Trevor Lawrence to succeed, Urban Meyer has to succeed too. They're in this thing together. So I'm pulling for Urban Meyer as a result of that.
The one thing I will say about the probabilities of trying to predict whether Urban Meyer or anybody else will be successful in the NFL, you have to understand that every franchise in the NFL can be successful and cannot be successful. And what I mean by that is certainly the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New England Patriots, the Green Bay Packers have had a long run of success. So obviously those franchises are better over time than the Cincinnati Bengals and the Jacksonville Jaguars, etc. But you can look at any NFL franchise, and I would not be surprised if you said they're going to win Super Bowls or go to playoffs in the next 10 years, or they're not. It's pretty much an even playing field. Teams are working with the same resources. The same talent pool is accessible to them. It's not like if Urban Meyer goes to USC, the scales are tipped in his favor, much because of himself, versus the Pac-12. He's going to go there, and if you said Urban Meyer just took the USC job, is he going to be successful? Yes, I don't need to think about it. If I would be shocked if he wasn't, yes, because he's got everything working in his favor. Is Oregon State going to be successful in the next 10 years with coach A, B, or C? Probably not. They're never successful, or they're rarely successful. Whereas the NFL, it's more of anywhere that Urban Meyer would have landed in the college ranks, the scales would have been tipped so heavily in his favor, versus he's just one of 32 guys that has an NFL franchise and has resources and personnel decisions to make along with a front office. So the slate is clean, and what can he do with it?
Yeah. And again, it comes down to drafting too. I'm seeing a lot of good points here in the comments about surrounding himself with a good coaching staff, all of those things. I agree. He did make the comment. I think it was after, watching Trevor Lawrence throw that day when he came down to Clemson. He said, I told my team, we cannot miss in this draft. We have to nail it, because if you don't nail it, then that sets you back at least 2 or 3 seasons. Especially when it comes to a team like Jacksonville, who is obviously one of the worst teams in the league, otherwise they wouldn't have the first pick, to nail it with a new coach and the first overall pick. I mean, look at what happens if you bust on a quarterback and your first overall pick. The teams that do that, they aren't relevant for at least 3 or 4 years. So it's important.
And from doing this every day, Pete, and talking to different people, that when we survey the comments that come in from the live chat, typically their rooting interest has a lot to do with their opinion. So
James Kane says Jaguars are in full rebuild mode. I don't agree with that. Coaching staff wise, they are. So they have actually some really good young talent, and they have, I believe, either the most or the second most cap space for free agency this season. So when you add the amount of draft picks they have with the talent that they already have there, a lot of young guys, and then you add a high amount of money to spend in free agency, you can go from terrible to really good in a hurry if you do things right.
All you have to do is look at the teams that make the NFL playoffs year to year, and look at the number of spots that change year to year. It's like a pretty incredible number. Yeah. It's like 40%, 50% of the teams. So just take the 12 teams that made the NFL playoffs last year, or I think it was 14 because they added a game. But anyway, it's typically 12 teams. Then understand that 5 or 6 of those are going to be completely different teams next year.
Yeah, there's a ton of parity in the NFL. There's a reason there's only maybe 2 or 3 teams going into any given season where you can say, well, we know these 2 or 3 teams are going to be playoff teams, or there at the end. Everybody else though it's just a guess.
The first thing that I hear brought up when people try to predict Urban Meyer's possible success in the NFL has to do with his attitude and his penchant for winning and how much he hates to lose. I heard Paul Feinbaum say the other day that Urban Meyer's the worst loser he's ever seen. I don't necessarily know that that's an insult or a compliment. Depends how you take it, because you don't want somebody to tolerate losing. But I think I know that Urban Meyer's capable enough mentally to know I'm not going 15-1 in the NFL. This is a difference. So I have to approach losses in each game and understand 10-6 is successful. We get to the playoffs, we're fine. Now, whether he can handle that emotionally, internally, when he's losing 3 and 4 consecutive games next year, possibly, because they were what this past season? 2-14?
Yeah. No, I think they only won one game.
1-15.
Whatever. Yeah.
So they could be 4-12 and could be a huge improvement, but he's got to be, I know that mentally he understands this isn't the same. There's not the same expectations that I have to go undefeated or only lose one game every year. That's
the key. You nailed it, Mark, because this is the thing we always argue about with the expansion of the playoffs in college. Every game is so important, and in college, the pressure every week is a pressure cooker. The NFL is not that way. Like you said, you can go 8-8 technically and still make the playoffs. So, I mean, sometimes we've seen a 7-9 team do it. So it's a different thing, and your job is always on the line. Like, in other words, look what Jim Harbaugh is going through. They've had a pretty good squad since he's been there. They've won a bunch of games, but never beat Ohio State. It seems like every season, his entire career or his future at Michigan hinges on this one victory that he hasn't got. You don't see that in the NFL. So it's a big difference. And I also think that he could take everything he's learned from being at the top of college football and take what he's learned and translate it to the professional game.
We appreciate everybody in the live chat, the comments, the contributions, everything involved. Again, Dave Rowland, Miami Flow, thank you so much for the super chats. Keep in mind that our show continues here based on your individual contributions. And if you've got a lead on a sponsor, please hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail, whether that's for Pigskin Pete's individual channel, hit him up. If you get a sponsor for my channel, or the College Football Coast to Coast show each and every week, hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. Also, again, a programming announcement next Monday at noon. We're all over on Pigskin Pete's channel.
If I'm alive, we have the Slob Olympics this weekend.
Oh, it's this weekend.
Yeah, so it's in Atlanta.
Fill us in on this thing, because I've heard this term thrown around. I haven't really listened to see what's involved. I think you and Uncle Lou are the only two people I know in the Slob Olympics. I don't recognize anybody else, but I saw a list one time on one of your live streams, I believe. But this I've only caught a glimpse or two of what could be involved.
Well, what it really is, Mark, honestly, is just a reason for a bunch of football YouTubers to get together and hang out for a weekend. Like, I'm bringing my family, I'm bringing my wife and my kids. It's a family event, right? But on Saturday, what we're doing is we're having what's called the Slob Olympics. You've seen the Olympics, on TV.
I have a few times.
So we won't be doing any of those events. Those are much too difficult for slobs like us. So we're going to do things like a spelling bee, a rock, paper, scissors. We're actually going to do a shoe throw in honor of the Florida player that threw the shoe in the game. So we're going to do a shoe throw for distance. We have like 10 events. We're going to take an IQ test and see who has.
These other things, who cares? You lose in rock, paper, scissors, even spelling bee. But man, that's the one.
Right. That I said I would rather finish last in every single event as long as it's not the IQ test, because you'll never live that one down. So anyway, we're doing these events during the day, and at the end of it, we're going to all go to the College Football Hall of Fame, because it's right there in downtown Atlanta, or close to where we're staying, or right across the street from where we're staying. And we're going to do our last event, and we're going to go through the College Football Hall of Fame and tour it like a normal person would. And then at the end of it, apparently they have a setup inside there where you can kick a field goal. It's like I don't know if it's like a 15 or 20, like an extra point distance. And so we're all going to kick the field goal as our last event, see who can make it and who can't. And then and that's it. And then we'll just hang out and go out to dinner or something. There's a bunch of stuff to do around there. Centennial, the Olympic Park area in Atlanta.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's going to be a good time. But I do anticipate maybe having a couple of cold ones with some of these fine gentlemen on Saturday night. And then, of course, we have to drive all the way. I'm 6 hours from Atlanta. So Sunday will be a long day. I don't know what if we'll do something in Atlanta on Sunday before we leave, but I'm sure I'll be getting back fairly late Sunday night. So, but anyways, I'll still be here Monday as long as I'm alive. I'll be here, or I'll be on my channel for the College Football Coast to Coast show, and I'm sure I'll have some interesting stories about what happened over the weekend.
Yeah, that will be. Hey, you can take over the hour with stories. That's going to be a good time. Yes, the Rod Farva is suggesting that you take the Wonderlic test.
So we thought about that. That was actually kicked around. I think the issue was you can't get a free Wonderlic test on the internet for whatever reason. They want you to buy it. But you can do a free IQ test. So we chose to do IQ test instead.
That's good stuff. So in Atlanta over the weekend, starting on Friday.
Well, I'll be getting there Friday, and then the events are pretty much all Saturday, and then Sunday we check out.
The Rod Farva is asking, what does Pete think of Florida State's recent success in recruiting, and does he see Florida State making improvement this season?
For the first part of that, what recent success have they had in recruiting? I'm not.
So I'm
seriously asking. I don't know.
Let's put this in perspective. I think this is what he's alluding to. So somebody in the live chat commented a few minutes ago, they were kind of putting the Michigan success in recruiting compared to Ohio State, where Michigan looks good. They're doing well, but they're still chasing somebody who's continuing to drift off into the ether somewhere where they can't catch them. So while Michigan has one top 500 or top 100 guy, Ohio State has 6, and then they made some other comparison. It was 9-1. I think it's the same thing here. Florida State, after just 3 dismal seasons, especially last year, they were just horrible, and their recruiting has gone downhill. They're showing a little bit of life. They've got a 5-star in Travis Hunter, I believe is his name, out of Georgia, and they got this 4-star athlete yesterday who was top 5 at his position, Sam McCall. So they've shown a little bit of life, especially on the defensive side with some recruiting, but again, Clemson's still outdistancing them.
See, here's the problem with me. It's hard for me to even wrap my head around how bad Florida State is right now, because my entire life they were a top 3 or 5 team in the country. And so to me, if you ask the recent success of Florida State's recruiting, compared to what? Compared to last season or the season before that, maybe. But in my mind, Florida State should be recruiting in the top 5 every year. So anything short of that is disappointing in my eyes. Certainly in the top 10, they should be recruiting.
Yeah. And even with some of the recent additions, and again, these guys have to be signed. So, right. And let's understand the commitment. I would love to see a statistic on this. I don't know what the commitment percentage is in terms of it coming to fruition. I would think it's 80 or 90%. So it's a good sign, but we've got a long 10 months before the actual signature goes. And the better the recruit, obviously, the more. These teams are not giving up on anybody. If you're Clemson and you want somebody, big deal. They committed to Florida State. We'll stay after him.
Yeah. Now, the second part of his question there is, do I see Florida State making an improvement this season? Yes. Over last season, I'd say so. Now, how much of an improvement are we talking here? Are we talking about, are they going to win 10 games? No. Might win 7 or 8, which would be an improvement. Of course, they have I don't know. Who do they play out of conference? They play Notre Dame this year, don't they?
Yeah, they got Notre Dame and Florida.
Oh, yeah. Shoo.
Like if you look at their schedule, I've got a Florida State show, so we're looking at their schedule all the time. They basically have 5 games that unless things change drastically, they are going to be a significant decided underdog. Like 5, Florida, Notre Dame, Clemson, Miami, North Carolina. They're a 2 touchdown underdog minimum pretty much across the board, something in that range. Okay. So if they hold a chalk and don't get picked off by anyone, and the way they've been playing, the Wake Forest of the world are actually better than they are. Yeah. So 7-5 will be an accomplishment.
So I didn't even know they played North Carolina because that's a cross divisional game there.
Yeah. They get the 2 best teams in the other division. So Florida State's schedule lines up really bad. Two difficult non-conference games and the 2 best teams in the other division.
Yeah. And well, are you including Miami as one of those?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah. So you're right. Now I think about it, the answer might be no. They might not improve next year, but they only won what? How many games?
They were 3-6.
They were 3-6. So yeah.
So 4-8's the equivalent.
Right.
So I would hope they're going to do better than that. But 5-7.
And look, who knows? Mike Norvell might end up being the best thing since sliced bread for all we know. I mean, he inherited a dumpster fire, and I even said when he got hired, they need to give this guy 4 or 5 years to fix what's broken there. So I think there'll be an improvement.
All right, folks. Again, every week it's a Monday schedule for you. Noon Eastern time with Pigskin Pete and myself. And next week we're going to be on over at his channel, Pigskin Pete's channel for college football coast to coast. And throughout the week, if you come up with topics that you'd like us to discuss, of course, we started this during the season, so we had just games all over the place to talk about. Now that we're hitting the off season, sure, there's news to talk about, but we would love to kick around any topics that you would like us to address.
Yeah. If anybody has something that they would like us to talk about, don't hesitate to either shoot me an email. The email is in the description of all my videos, and or just send me a direct message on Twitter, and me and Mark would be happy. Not just anything.
Was that me or was that you? You froze up on my end, but that might have been me.
I don't know. My screen just went black. But it came right back.
That might be coming through me.
Yeah.
So in case, what did you just say? Because I didn't get it. I just got the chuckle at the end. That's all I got.
Oh, I was telling everybody if they had any ideas for topics, don't hesitate to shoot me an email or a direct message on Twitter, and we'd be happy to talk about just about anything. Especially if it's college football related, but there might be 1 or 2 things we're not willing to talk about, but pretty much anything we'll talk about.
Sure. And apparently we've got JJ Watt signing with the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes, I just read that. To add insult to injury, first they traded away DeAndre Hopkins to Arizona, and now JJ Watt. So it's the Houston Cardinals is what we'll start calling them.
Yeah, and the wrong part of the Houston Texans moving over there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you don't want to be that NFL team. Well, the Texans on the downside of losing those kind of pillars to their franchise, but I'm not saying the Arizona Cardinals are doing this, but I just don't know how much JJ Watt has left that you should really be counting on him. A 2-year contract seems to be pretty reasonable and pretty much in line with what you should expect.
Yeah, he's not an every down guy like he was. But he's a solid addition. I don't know.
Man, you're talking about
$17 million a year or whatever they're paying him. I don't know about that, but he is JJ Watt. So
you can help us build these channels, folks. A number of ways, individual contributions, as John Sarian's telling you right there. Just hit the like button right here. Head on over to YouTube to Pigskin Pete's channel here on YouTube. and check out the videos, catch his live streams, do all those good things. What's your week look like?
Let's see. Tonight I'll be over on Uncle Lou's channel for the Lunch Money Show. It's the best show about nothing on all of YouTube. We do that from 10 till 12 to midnight. And then, of course, every Wednesday and Friday night over on my channel, I do a live call-in show where all of you fine people can call in and ask me my opinion on things. Of course, this Friday I will not be doing a call-in show because I'll be in Atlanta, but I will be on Wednesday night.
I will see all of you tonight at 6 o'clock Eastern time for as long as you want to send me comments and questions, and also call me up to talk college football. All right, everyone. Again, Pigskin Pete's channel next Monday at noon Eastern time. All right, Pete, have a great week, man. We'll see you soon.
See y'all later.
Let's squeeze in the super chat. Yakov 22 got in right under the wire. So we certainly want to recognize you, Yakov 22. Thank you so much for the super chat contribution. Thank you so much for the comment there. Mark, Pete, on the Mount Rushmore of YouTube college talk.
I'll take it.
We'll take it. We'll send it off right there. Yakov 22. If you ever want to shoot any promotions for us, get them out there.
Yeah.
you seem to be like, that seems to be a calling of yours. That's a gift right there. We love it. So we'll see everybody soon.